Signalflow. This is the first video in our 6-part fundamental course, and I really believe it's one of the most important ones. Especially if you're new to the industry or you're a volunteer at church, this is really one you don't want to miss. Firstly, if you don't understand Signalflow, you're going to have a really hard time troubleshooting. Your signal flow and the way you build it and your understanding of it directly influence your gain structure, which is going to be the next video in this series. So you're manipulating your gain structure before you even get to the input or the preamp or start dialing up a gain. Thirdly, it is the first building block towards our mix. Very important. When we start setting up a stage, we are already building a mix. The mixing doesn't start when you step behind the console. The mixing starts when you plug in the first cable into the first mic. Then lastly, if you don't understand simple signal flows, you're going to have a really hard time understanding complex digital systems where the signal can go anywhere and we can share it over different formats. It can be Dante, MADI, ABB, different sample rates even. So learning this habit of visualizing where your signal's going right from the beginning is crucial, I'll say. Let's quickly head outside.
A really nice way to think about signal flow is to think about something we use on a daily basis, and it's a pipe. So when we plug in a microphone into the XLR, the signal is flowing down that XLR in the same way water flows. So you want to imagine your signal chain like a conduit that's transferring that electrical signal, and it's going into the console. And when you open an aux or lift up a fader, you're directing the signal or that water into different directions. So for instance, you pull up aux 1, it goes to aux 1 master, you lift up aux 1 master, and now you can output it somewhere.
Okay, so it's helpful to think about signal flow in terms of a signal flowing, like water flowing through a pipe, except it's a electrical signal flowing through copper. How do we visualize this? Best way is with a pen and paper. If you are in a situation where, for instance, you're working at a club or you are a volunteer at a church, you often will mix on a console where you didn't set everything up. This is where it becomes extremely important, because troubleshooting something that you didn't set up can be tricky, especially when you don't have a lot of experience. So we're going to do this and you're going to practice this. So let's draw the simplest signal flow that we can imagine. A microphone with a XLR. Right. Mic, XLR going into a powered speaker, active speaker. Let's see what that would look like. It'll look like this. There's the mic. And this is XLR going into a power speaker. Obviously a power speaker will always get power. It's called a power speaker, by the way, because the amp is built into this one box. There's no external amp, and the signal's not going to the amp and then from the amp to the speaker. And oftentimes these power speakers, they actually have a mic input at the back, so you can do this. So if you're at a fun race and you just want to talk, this is a nice way of doing it. Okay, let's bump it up a bit. Let's say we're looking at a single console setup, just a guitar and a keyboard, and it's a digital signal between the stage and front of house. Excuse my drawing. Let's do a funky bass guitar. Right. Let's go at least 4 strings. Into a DI. What is a DI, you ask? A DI is just something that converts a unbalanced signal. Here's an example of a DI. This is an active DI, which means it needs phantom power, which is power coming through the XLR just to power the active staging on this box. And what it does is the input is jack. It's got a through as well if you want to go to a bass cab or a bass amp. And it outputs XLR on the other side. Looks like that. So in this case, it'll be something like this. And then XLR on the other side. And then the signal chain will continue from here. So if this is a really tiny, small little stage, it'll probably go XLR straight to the digital stage rack. But let's say it's a slightly bigger stage and we need something called a cross-stage mult. So that is a multi-core cable. And in this case, we're going to say we need one of those. So I'm going to draw it here. It's got a box and it's got lots of different XLR inputs. And we're going to go XLR out into the first input there. And then this is going to go to our stage rack, our digital stage rack. Doesn't really matter what brand it is, the concept stays the same. This is a multi-core cable. And it's got lots of breakouts on the other side. It's called tails, all XLR. Some of them have returns as well in the opposite direction, but for this illustration, we're not going to worry about that. And then we've got a keyboard. And keyboard, we want to do stereo. So we're going to have a stereo DI. Or we're going to use 2 DIs. Let's say we do have a stereo DI. There's 2 jack to jacks. Two XLRs. So we're going into those inputs. So at this stage, you can see it's already important to understand where the cables are going. You need to know where the cable's patched in on the mult or the sub-mult, and then also where it's patched into the stage rack. And then from the stage rack to the console is normally just 1 or 2 fiber cables or Cat5s, but on the console it can also be soft patched. So if you go into channel 1, it can be patched to channel 12. So if you don't know where the signal's going and it's coming up on the console and you're working with it and you lose it and it's cross-patched, for instance, on this box for the sub-mult or at the stage rack, you're already in a bad place. How do we avoid mistakes like that? Is by labeling the cables. Taking a piece of tape, taking a permanent marker and writing on it bass, keyboard, guitar, and so on and so forth. So let's say we've got a console here in front of us. And here's our faders. And now we've got a digital connection from here to there. This connection here can be different formats. It can be MADI. It can be AVB. It can be Dante. It can be AES50. Different formats. Most of them either work on a coax cable or a network cable or a fiber. or optical, like Digico uses optical, like the one we have on loan here from DWR. Right. So now we need to think about PA. So let's say we've got a PA system, and we'll throw in one more format just for fun. Let's say it's a simple little PA. It's got one top and one sub aside. Right, and we decide we're going to patch this with a digital signal called AES3. Let's say we do have an amp in this case. It's an amp here. One amp for left. Let's say we've got another amp. Left and right. We're going to go out to the other side. And this is AES 1 and 2. AES 3 and 4. So you see, when you start drawing it out, you can also see how many cables I need, how many jack-to-jacks I need, how many XLRs. We can add some monitors in. That'll be helpful. There's obviously speaker cables going out. Let's say in this scenario it looks like that. This is an amplified signal. But at the moment, we're not worried too much about the formats. We just want to be able to visualize where all the signal is going. So drawing it out just on a piece of paper is a fantastic way just to wrap your head around how the signal is going from one place to another. This is also a great tool to use when you are prepping for a show and you want to just figure out how many long runs do I have, how many fibers do I need, how many XLRs do I need. Sub-mults. You can draw your stage and put all your sub-mults, your multi-core cables in its place and measure it up and go, oh, okay, I need 130 meter and 120 meter and maybe one short one. Figure out where the instruments are going to be. The more you prepare and the more you understand this, the better your show will go. And obviously, when something goes wrong, the easier it will be to find those faults. Let's add in two more things. Let's just say we've got a monitor here. And we've got a monitor for the bassist. And we're just gonna do analog signals. So say this was a mult with a return. So in the same multi-core cable, there can be, say, 12 or 16 channels going this way, or 12 and 4 going back. Then, instead of the signal now going this way, we can either turn it around, or say it was already turned around and go out of here, that way, and out of here, that way. So now we've got a band with a bass and some keys. Maybe there's some vocals, wireless microphones, two monitors. There might be some radio mics, RX mics here in front of us. Just patched locally. 4 times RX. And there might be some in-ear monitors as well. So abbreviation we use as IAMs. So that's signal going that way, and this will be signal going in the opposite direction, so that we can just patch locally if it's a small venue. I like to keep it on stage, but in a small venue there's nothing wrong with that. It's getting a bit messy, but you get the idea of how you can draw this out. Sometimes for the bigger shows, to wrap your head around the digital workflow, I love to draw it out. So you can just open up PowerPoint, draw some lines, download some pictures from the internet, or use Keynote if you're on Mac. Let me show you some of the designs that I've done over the years. So this is an example of a show I did quite a while ago in 2017. And I did this little drawing. It was interesting because we were running 2 different sample rates, so there was sample rate conversion involved as well. So it's just showing the digital connections, not all the XLRs and so on. That's on the patch list. But it looked like this. So 2 consoles, Avid, and in this case a VR7000 in front of us. There was some playback, and there was obviously lighting. The green there is time code. There was some drum triggers, 2 playback machines that was switched via the VR7000 and then returned via MADI to the Avid, to Avid stage racks, some personal monitoring. There was another playback machine here, can't remember for what, but it also MADI. And the recording, this was actually had 2 recordings of 128 channels, but I just simplified it there. But this gives you a good idea. By drawing it out, it helps you to know what to prep, and also it highlights any trouble pitfalls that you can run into before you get to site. So the better you plan, things always change. That's the nature of our industry. But having a good plan and sticking to it as far as possible is a surefire way of getting to a good result. Okay, so here's another drawing that I did, Benjamin 2022. And yeah, so you can see 2 Avid consoles, MADI roots in the middle there. It's interesting here because I'm using, actually as the first stage rack, I'm using underneath IDR64, 2 recordings. But yeah, it's super helpful drawing this out. And all this is just a PowerPoint or Keynote, depending on whether you're on Mac or PC, doesn't really matter. And you can just swap this out. I don't bother to spend too much time on getting high-res images. I'll just drag whatever I can find to my desktop and then stick it in here. Whatever the case might be, yeah, let's put it in front of us. So you can very quickly build yourself a very nice little quantum 2. Right, and just adjust it. I mean, in this case, I would obviously not need that. Any of this stuff. It just can be coax. Doesn't even need blocking. Just block locally. So the important thing is that you understand where the signal goes. That is the whole purpose of today's training. Please use the tools, read up about it, draw it out, put it on your computer. And obviously this is something that we do during the prep phase. It goes hand in hand with our patch lists and our kit lists. And we want to make sure that all these things correlate with each other so we can get to site and have a stress-free show. Please join us for the next video. We're going to talk about gain structure, and that will be the second video out of our 6-part fundamental course. If there's any words or terminology that I used that didn't make sense to you, on the Facebook page, and I'll put the link in this description as well, is a glossary that I've pulled, 600 words that explains a lot of the terms that I've used. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching.